What if the reason your real estate business isn't growing has nothing to do with your work ethic, your market, or your competition? What if the real problem is that you're fixing the wrong things? Here's a question that billion-dollar companies have been asking for decades, and that most real estate agents have never even considered. Where is the bottleneck in your business? Because here's what the data tells us. Most professionals spend the majority of their time improving areas that have almost no impact on their overall results. They get better at things that aren't actually holding them back. And in real estate, that mistake is costing people their entire career. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to walk you through one of the most powerful operational frameworks ever developed, one that was originally built for manufacturing giants and Fortune 500 companies, and show you exactly how it applies to your real estate business today. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to see your business in a completely different way. My name is Robert Lee, and for over 17 years, I've worked with real estate professionals, helping them build smarter systems, sharper strategies, and more sustainable businesses. What I've learned in that time is that the agents who break through don't always work harder than everyone else. They work differently, they think differently, and a big part of that comes down to something called systems thinking. The ability to look at your business not as a collection of individual tasks, but as an interconnected system where every part affects every other part. Today, we're going to apply one of the most respected frameworks in systems thinking to your real estate career. It's called the theory of constraints. And by the time we're done, you're going to have a practical, repeatable process for diagnosing exactly what's holding your business back and what to do about it. Let's start with the foundational idea. In 1984, a physicist and business consultant named Dr. Eliyahu Goldratt published a book called The Goal. It was framed as a novel, but it contained one of the most important management insights of the 20th century. The premise was this: every system, whether it's a factory, a hospital, or a real estate business, has at least one constraint, one weak link, one bottleneck that limits the throughput of the entire system. And critically, Goldratt argued that no matter how much you improve every other part of the system, you cannot improve the system's overall performance until you address that constraint. Think about it this way. Imagine a chain. It doesn't matter how strong most of the links are. The chain will always break at its weakest link. And if you spend all your time strengthening the links that are already strong, you've wasted your effort. The chain is still just as weak as that one weakest point. That's the theory of constraints in its simplest form. And when you apply it to real estate, the implications are enormous. Most real estate agents approach their business the way most people approach a to-do list. They work on whatever feels urgent. They take coaching on the skills they find interesting. They invest in tools that seem exciting. They improve things that are already working reasonably well. But they rarely stop and ask the most important question of all. What is actually the bottleneck in my business right now? What is the one thing, if I fixed it, that would make everything else better? Goldratt built a 5-step process for answering exactly that question. Let's walk through each step with a real estate lens so you can apply this immediately. Step 1 is to identify the constraint. You need to find the weakest link. In real estate, the constraint almost always lives in one of 3 places: lead generation, lead conversion, or capacity. And in the vast majority of cases, particularly for agents who are in growth mode, the constraint is lead generation, not scripts, not negotiation skills, not market knowledge. The bottleneck is a consistent, reliable flow of people who want to buy or sell real estate. According to the National Association of Realtors, one of the leading causes of agent attrition in the industry is insufficient lead flow. Agents leave not because they weren't good at their jobs, but because they ran out of people to serve. So ask yourself honestly, if I had twice as many leads tomorrow, could my business handle them? If the answer is yes, lead generation is almost certainly your constraint. Step 2 is to exploit the constraint. To exploit the constraint means to get the maximum possible output from it without any additional investment. You don't add resources yet. You just stop wasting the capacity you already have. For an agent whose constraint is lead generation, exploiting it might look like this. Stop letting leads go cold because you didn't follow up within 24 hours. Stop generating leads from one source and never nurturing them. Stop attending networking events and failing to capture contact information. You may already have leads you haven't fully worked. You may already have a sphere of influence you haven't systematically stayed in front of. Exploiting the constraint means you squeeze every bit of value out of your current lead sources before adding new ones. This alone can dramatically move the needle. Step 3 is to subordinate everything else to the constraint. This is where most people struggle because it requires real discipline. Subordinating everything to the constraint means every other activity in your business should be evaluated based on whether it supports or serves the bottleneck. If your constraint is lead generation, then your schedule, your marketing, your content, your networking, everything should be oriented around improving that one area. What this means in practice: stop perfecting your listing presentation when you don't have enough listings to present. Stop refining your buyer consultation script when you don't have enough buyers to consult with. Stop building a beautiful CRM when there's nothing in the pipeline to manage. Every hour you spend improving something that isn't your constraint is an hour you're not improving the thing that actually limits your growth. It's a discipline. But it's also a liberation because it gives you clarity about what truly matters. Step 4 is to elevate the constraint. Once you've exploited your existing capacity and organized your operation around the constraint, now it's time to invest in breaking through it. Elevation means adding resources, capital, time, tools, or strategic capability to expand what your bottleneck can produce. For an agent with a lead generation constraint, elevation might mean investing in a consistent content strategy that builds your visibility. It might mean adding paid lead sources, hiring an inside sales agent, or building strategic referral partnerships with mortgage professionals, financial planners, or attorneys. The key distinction here is timing. Most agents jump straight to elevation. They buy leads, hire help, invest in tools before they've identified their constraint or exploited what they already have. They add fuel to a fire that doesn't have enough oxygen. Elevation is the right move, just not the first move. Step 5 is to go back to step 1. This is what makes the theory of constraints a system rather than a one-time fix. Once you've elevated your constraint to the point where it's no longer the bottleneck, something else becomes the new constraint. Maybe you've solved your lead generation problem, and now your constraint is your capacity to convert those leads. Maybe your follow-up system can't handle the volume. Maybe your schedule doesn't have room for the appointments being generated. Every time you break through a bottleneck, you surface the next one, and you start the process again. Identify, exploit, subordinate, elevate, repeat. This is the rhythm of continuous improvement in a systems thinking business. Now, I want to contrast this with how most real estate professionals operate, because the difference is stark. The traditional approach to growing a real estate business is what I'd call the cafeteria model. You pick the coaching you find interesting, you attend the conference that sounds good this year, you implement the strategy your colleague is excited about, and you do all of this without ever asking whether it addresses your actual bottleneck. The cafeteria model produces a very particular kind of busyness. Agents who follow it are always working, always implementing something new, but they don't experience compounding growth because they're constantly improving random parts of the chain rather than strengthening the weakest link. The theory of constraints replaces random improvement with strategic, sequenced improvement. It replaces busyness with leverage. Here's a real-world example to bring this to life. Imagine an agent named Marcus. Marcus has been in the business for 3 years. He's technically competent, great with clients once he's in front of them. He consistently converts at a high rate. Maybe 70 or 80% of the people he meets end up working with him. But his business is stagnant. So he invests in a coaching program focused on objection handling. He gets better at objection handling. His close rate ticks up to 85%, and nothing changes, because Marcus's constraint was never conversion. His constraint was always lead generation. He didn't have enough clients to work with in the first place. A theory of constraints analysis would have identified that bottleneck in the first conversation and pointed him toward an entirely different set of priorities. That's the power of this framework. Let me give you a practical tool you can use starting today. I call it the Constraint Audit, and it has 4 steps. Step 1. Map your pipeline stages. Write down every stage a lead goes through from first contact to close transaction. Step 2. Identify where volume drops off most dramatically. Where do leads stall, go cold, or disappear? That's usually where your constraint lives. Step 3. Calculate your conversion rates at each stage. If you're losing 60% of your leads between initial contact and first appointment, that stage deserves a hard look. If you're losing most leads before they even enter your pipeline, your constraint is upstream. It's lead generation itself. Step 4. Choose one constraint and build your next 90 days around it. Not 5 constraints. 1. The weakest link. Everything else is secondary until that link gets stronger. This is a billion-dollar company framework, and I'm not using that phrase loosely. Toyota, Amazon, Intel, organizations that have generated hundreds of billions in revenue, use variants of this systems thinking approach to continuously improve their operations. The difference between them and most real estate agents isn't resources, it's mindset. It's the willingness to zoom out, look at the whole system, find the bottleneck, and put all of your energy there. That capability is available to every single one of you right now. Here's where this connects to something we work on every day at Lesix. The thinking we've covered today is genuinely work you can do on your own. Grab a whiteboard. Map your business as a system. Trace where the flow slows down. Ask yourself where the chain is weakest. That analysis alone will give you more clarity than most agents have about their own businesses. Where we come in, through resources like the 90-minute marketing department, is on the execution side. Once you've identified that lead generation is your constraint, the challenge becomes building and running a consistent, professional marketing system around that bottleneck without it consuming your entire week. That's exactly what we've built, a way to put the execution on autopilot, so you can stay focused on the high-value work that only you can do. Let me leave you with this. The real estate industry rewards hustle. It rewards showing up, working hard and putting in the hours. But hustle without direction is just expensive motion. The agents who build real businesses, businesses that don't collapse when the market shifts, that generate consistent income regardless of conditions, are the ones who've made the transition from working in the business to working on the system. The theory of constraints is your invitation to make that transition. Identify your constraint. Exploit what you have. Subordinate everything else. Elevate the bottleneck, and then do it again. That's not just a framework for business growth. That's a framework for building something that lasts. If you want to go deeper, pick up Goldrat's original book, The Goal. It's written as a novel. It's a quick read, and it will permanently change how you see every system in your life. And if you're ready to talk about building a marketing system around your constraint, one that runs efficiently every week without requiring you to become a full-time marketer, reach out to us at Lesix. We'd love to help you think it through. This script was generated using an AI employee built in Claude by the Lesix agency. Video produced with HeyGen using an avatar trained on the voice and likeness of Lesix founder Robert Lee. For more information about how Lesix can grow your business, schedule a free profitability planning session at lesix.agency.